when you get premiums really this high in the physical market, what that's saying is that the spot price is less and less relevant in reality.
Well, hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics. And on today's show, I am quite excited to welcome back on in a cult hero on the channel, Rafi Farber of the Endgame Investor, who obviously does his weekly Friday Silver Report on the show, which people have come to love quite a bit. And realizing, though, it's been a while since we've had Rafi on an interview form to dig into silver and some of the other interesting things that are going on in the market. So Rafi, it's great to catch up with you again and appreciate all that you've been doing for the channel, as people sure love your report. And how's everything going with you today?
Everything is going well in the middle of the holiday. Things are moving. I'm in my sukkah here outdoors, where I will be camping out for the next 5 days. And yeah, life is good for now, and it should continue to be so. God willing.
Well, I like that approach, and I like that through all the things that you've been covering and writing about, you do see a silver lining, perhaps pun intended, coming out through all of this, and in a way that, even if we don't always see it, that life sometimes figures these things out. And in the meantime, we do as best as we can to stay prepared. But with all of that said, a few things to dig into, but maybe we could start with the silver market and how close you see things coming to what you've been writing about in your Endgame Investor column for a while. Obviously, the Fed continues to hike rates. We're now starting to finally see some of the issues that many of us expected that might pop up, more so in the foreign markets. But with where everything stands right now, I'd love to get a synopsis of how you see the silver market moving forward, as today it's trading $19 and change. We're recording on Tuesday, October 11th. So perhaps we could start there.
How long do I see until the end game happens? I wish I knew the exact answer to that question, because then I wouldn't have to worry about anything. But look, some of the things that I'm seeing, that I'm focusing on, is, look, first of all, physical premiums are now above record highs. The junk premiums are now 42%. When you get premiums really this high in the physical market, what that's saying is that the spot price is less and less relevant in reality. I mean, if you have to pay a 40% premium to actually get physical stuff, then what's the point of a spot price? The spot price is to set the price of the market so that the market knows where to price things. But if the actual market where these things are being sold is saying, no, I don't like that price, then they'll charge a premium way above and beyond. And so that's what's happening. And the other thing that I saw that like popped into my view, we talk about SLV a lot, right? And SLV has been losing a lot of silver. But then I wanted to look at, what about all the rest of the silver funds in the world? Perth Mint, Gold Money, Kinesis, or whoever stores silver. Whoever basically stores silver for a certificate to give to somebody to say that they own silver somewhere in the world, whether that's SLV or anything else. And what amazed me is that the combined storage of all paper silver funds in the world has collapsed 165 million ounces just in 2022 year to date. And the closest, I think, was like 15 or 20 million in 2014 or 2015, when the silver market was really getting hammered. There's nothing close to 165 million, but the question is 165 million ounces. Okay, so where'd it go? Where is it? And you look in the COMEX, their total silver stockpiles are not going up. Yeah, registered going down, but the eligible is stable. Like they're not getting any more silver. And you look at the LBMA, and it's tanked another 45 million or something into September, and now it's at 847 million. And you look at the chart, it's just like straight down since Silver Squeeze, basically. So it's not going into the LBMA, it's not going into the COMEX. Where the hell is it going? So the answer has to be where the premiums are, because where else would it go? I mean, you get flows into where you get the most money. So who's paying the premiums? The silver stacker. That's who's paying them. that's what we want people to do. So all this silver is going out of the paper markets into people's basements or attics or I don't know, some kind of trick tile on their floor in a safe somewhere. Good. That's has to be where it's going. That's the silver lining. Hopefully there's a silver lining around everyone's house. Lead paint, silver lining to save it from a nuclear attack or whatever's going to happen in Russia. I don't know. Everything's going crazy.
So, I mean, do you think it's a matter of that people are, in a mainstream sense, finally seeing what a lot of people in the Austrian community have felt for a while, or still confined just to the silver crowd? Or do you think we're going to have reached that point where people are looking at what's going on in the world, whether it's the Japanese central bank intervening in the yen, or the stuff that's going on with the Bank of England right now? Do you think that we're finally seeing a bigger audience turn towards silver?
I think it's bigger, but I don't think it's noticeably bigger yet. I can tell you just some anecdotes that I've had. People know me in my community as the silver guy. Like if they have questions about silver, they want silver, they come to me because I know that I tell them where to go. And it so these are kind of opposite stories. One is a British guy who I learn with, and he's a gold bug and a silver back and all the other things you want to tell him. And he wanted to know where he could sell some gold because the pound has been so poor lately that he's in a liquidity crunch himself. He needs to meet his expenses and he can't do it because he's lost so much pound income, and he spends shekels because we live in Israel. So the exchange rate has collapsed and he needs to sell gold. Now he doesn't want to, but he had to. So, I referred him to some people, some companies, we could get the best price, and he had to do what he had to do. So, that's one reason why the gold price has been pounded, because some people are in a personal liquidity crunch, even, stackers like us. So it happens. With silver, some people I've noticed that they've sold their houses, and they want to go back to renting because they're worried about the housing market. They have all this cash, and they come to me and they're like, "Where can I get silver with all this cash?" So I refer them to a company.
Right.
So I've seen both ways. So what I think might be happening is that people who are sympathetic to the silverbacks, but were never really part of the community, not the core or anything, but they get what we're saying. They just haven't moved yet. I think they're starting to move. The masses that have no idea what's going on, no, they're not waking up yet. When they wake up, we'll know. It'll be obvious. They haven't woken up yet. Because their welfare checks are still coming through. But once that's gone, then they'll wake up because they'll have to. And it won't even necessarily be from silver, it will be everything. And the silver price will reflect that.
Yeah, which makes it interesting to think about when you do get some more mainstream participation. I feel like we saw a glimpse of that last year during Silver Squeeze, where price dipped over $30 for a couple of hours. All of a sudden, JM Bullion was on CNBC, and we know how a lot of the trading goes based on momentum, especially on Wall Street and in the US. Although something you mentioned last week, which I thought was interesting and something I've thought about before, is that if we do have this environment where silver is becoming more predominant as money, what that actually looks like. And you talked about some of the bullion dealerships almost becoming like a de facto bank. And I was wondering if you could talk a bit more about that, because, when we really do have a bigger issue, if it hits the dollar, if it hits these other currencies in a more severe, overt way, how do you think that actually goes in terms of how people are tangibly using their silver?
Well, you got to put yourself into a world like that, and it's hard to do. But it's a world where nobody wants dollars, or it's just not worth enough. And even if it is for a certain transaction, you have to get rid of it so quickly that the profit margins that you need to make are so high that it's just not worth it. I mean, it happened recently in Israel in 1984, that basically people stopped paying their mortgages and banks stopped collecting and stopped sending threatening letters, because what's the point of collecting a few thousand old shekels that are worth a few cents? So everything just stopped. And so then what did people use for money? Well, here they use dollars because the dollar was still stable in 1984, it was pretty strong. So the currency just changed from the old shekel to the dollar for a while until they got the new shekel working based on the dollar, and then distributed that into everyone's account. So that's what happened. So what would happen in a world where people don't want a dollar? So they're not going to exchange silver for dollars. So then what are all these companies going to do that have all this silver, and their business model now is to sell it for dollars, but now dollars don't buy anything. So what are they going to do? It's not like there's a plan now in place where the silver retailers are planning to become banks when this happens. But it's the way business flows. Like once something doesn't work, once you can't sell silver for dollars anymore because you can't do anything with the dollars, so what are you going to do? You have all this silver and you have people that need it because they need money. So you loan it out at an interest rate denominated in silver. And that's what a bank is. Except, banks before 1873, they did the same thing, except they used the silver substitute called a dollar, which happened to be paper and lighter. It's like we're going back into a circle of where we were back in 1873, which is what a reset is. Like, this is like, I guess, tangentially related. We talk about resets, but a reset on WEF terms, or let's say they introduce a central bank digital currency and enslave us all, and we have no privacy at all. That wouldn't be a reset. That would be continuation of slavery. A reset, we're going back to where we were before, which was when silver was money. And one more thing I want to say about that: I'm not saying that silver is going to be money directly for that long of a time period. Maybe it will be, but generally silver is going to be money for at least for that emergency time period when gold substitutes no longer work and nobody trusts them. So then what are you going to do? So you're going to go to silver because that divides gold very well. And so we see every time there's a monetary panic, the gold ratio goes 15-1, and then silver makes a moonshot and it stays there for a little bit, and then central banks kind of get control of the situation again, and it goes back down. So this time it'll go up. It'll stay there for a little bit longer because the panic's going to take a little longer to sort out. But basically, once you have that 15-1 ratio, I'd say start spending. We don't stack just to have shiny things in our basements. It's nice, but we want stuff.
Well, certainly will be interesting to see what that looks like when it plays out. Along those lines, something else that you've commented on, in addition to how we've seen metal coming out of the COMEX and LBMA stockpile, we've also seen the banks increasingly getting net long silver, as well as the open interest dropping in silver quite a bit to the lowest level we've seen in a while. Curious if you had any thoughts on the drop in open interest and what's going on there.
Well, the drop in open interest would be that you aren't seeing contracts open up, but you are seeing old positions close. So that would be short positions closings there. So a lot of shorts are getting closed. When open interest goes up, you're getting speculators go in, and then you have to have a new short on the other side of that. So then open interest rises. But that means that the short positions are closing out. I haven't checked the COT numbers. How many shorts, how many longs are there? Everything's net long now. Is that what it is?
Yep.
Are there? So bullion banks are net long now. So it hasn't been as low since it looks like, what is this, the 5-year chart?
This is, yes, the 5-year.
I mean, usually when open interest is this low, you just look at the graph. I mean, in March 2020, it was we were at like $10, $50, $11, and then it went back up again. So at numbers this low, which is below March 2020, then the price is going to go up again. Exactly when, you don't know. But the key is you don't want to be in a situation where you're chasing it. You want to be in while it's low, so that when it goes up, you're not, clicking the computer the next day and saying, "Oh my God, silver went up 10%. I better get in now." No, you don't want to get in now. You want to get in before that. That's the whole point. So what does it matter if it takes a week, if it takes a month, if it takes a year? I don't think it's going to take a year, but we've seen this before. We've seen open interest this low. We've seen what happens before. It's going to happen again.
Well, it does seem like when you play through the events, where else are we going? Because in the meantime, as that is happening, something I know you've talked about as well, most powerful buyers in the treasury all bailing at once, Fed, foreign governments, commercial banks stepping back. It makes you wonder, as rates are going up and the Fed doing quantitative tightening, who is going to buy those bonds? And as I know you've pointed out, as that continues to play out, the Fed taking a hit on their balance sheet as well.
Mhm.
I know you're an advocate that you do think a pivot is coming. So far, they continue to say that they're going to fight inflation, although you wonder if there will be some break point like we saw in the British market where they were doing quantitative tightening and then they hit a crisis and things change pretty quickly. But what do you see with the Fed going forward in the next couple of months or year or so with everything you've been reporting on there?
It's these narratives change. The human attention span gets shorter and shorter every day now, and if you remember back in 2008, all you got to do is watch The Big Short, the movie, and you can feel the panic going on everywhere. Except this time, it's going to be so much worse because everything is so much bigger,
Yeah.
and all the printing done in the last 14 years. So like, all the academic articles and CNBC, pivot, no pivot, schmivot, what? Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a panic because the structure of everything that caused 2008 has gotten so much worse. I mean, look, it's not going to be exactly the same. It's not going to be like, oh, there's a subprime problem in the housing market, and then all of a sudden everything collapses. It's always going to be something new that nobody was expecting. So it's going to be somewhere that they weren't expecting, but it doesn't matter where it's from. It's going to happen. And that panic, and in that panic, when let's just say, for example, that there's a treasury auction of a 10-year treasury or a 30-year treasury, and nobody buys anything. Like it just goes zero bid. And then the Fed goes, or no, they go on TV like, look, just relax. Everything's gonna be fine. We have to fight inflation. Do you think they're going to say that? That's crazy. No, they're gonna send out some academic article about dysfunctional markets, and we have to calm things and very temporary, and it'll all be fine, and then we'll go back to fighting inflation later. That's what they're going to do, and they're going to print amounts that we haven't seen before. And are they going to say this is the pivot? Are they going to announce it? This is the pivot. Everyone, all the silverbacks can now buy their silver, announce it. Blah, 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 blah. They're not going to do that. They're going to say this is not a pivot. We're not pivoting. There's no pivot. We're just, buying all these bonds from this auction, and that's it. So just calm down and, keep collecting your welfare. Okay.
Well, I know what you mean, and certainly that's what caught my eye so much about the situation in England, where again, going to tightening and then seeing how quickly that changed, and wonder if we'll see something like that in the U.S. Treasury market. Last one for you here before we wrap up. Also, we've seen increased premiums for gold in China as well as Turkey, continuing to see gold flowing to the east. Do you think they're preparing something there? Certainly, China has been buying gold for over a decade now and really accelerating their purchases. Russia, we saw what they did earlier this year. Seems like they're heading towards their basket of currencies. Curious your thoughts on what we've seen out of the East this year.
I've noticed specifically actually a big premium in India. And that really encourages me because India, I think, has the biggest gold consciousness in their culture. I think more than China or Russia. You look at pictures of Indian weddings and you see all this gold everywhere. It's in their culture. That's how they save. That's how they've always done it. And they're a relatively poor country that isn't very well banked, and so a lot of people still save in gold. And I wanted to go there. I don't trust Russia or China, but India is pretty quiet. Let them have a whole bunch of gold and calm things down. And let them like come out of nowhere and be rich. Let them have some money. I like India. They make me happy. but are they organizing anything? Is China and Russia organizing anything? I hope not, because I don't because China is a dangerous country with a very subservient culture where there's no, there's no individual, there's no rugged individualism there. It's very drony. Can I even say that? Is that and look, the way that China's been surviving, how do they manage like a communist system for so long? It's simple. They have these things called special economic zones where they have these where basically all the factories are, where all the economic regulations and all the communist laws that exist in the rest of the country, they don't exist there. So you have maximum production in those zones, and then the regime kind of feeds off of that, and it sucks the life out of those zones, and then you have the power of the Communist Party from there. But when the dollar no longer has purchasing power, so they can't sell to Americans anymore, and then the whole relationship kind of falls through, and then China has to sort of restructure. But I don't think that they're smart enough or they really understand what's going on. I mean, I remember these articles in 2015 when the yen had to be devalued, of the People's Bank of China sending these emergency letters to the Fed saying, "What do we do now? Please explain, how do we stop this crash?" They're people want to have these theories that they're so smart and they're kind of pivoting for a new currency, like a new currency regime, and they know what they're doing. I don't think they know what they're doing. I think that they're just doing what is in their self-interest now, and whoever ends up with the most gold and silver at the end of this is going to win. And I want it to be India, not China. Let India come out of nowhere.
Well, fortunately, India also picking up big chunks of silver lately as well. So, and I
Mhm.
get what you're saying, although it is interesting just seeing the commentary out of Putin, where he's been an anti-dollar proponent for quite a while. Doesn't seem to hide that too much, and can understand certain parts of that, especially with how the dollar has been used and now becoming a financial weapon. So certainly interesting times we're living in. And Rafi, in addition to catching you every Friday here on the Arcadia channel, could you perhaps let folks know where they can find you on Seeking Alpha if they'd like to get some more information in your column, which I continue to enjoy reading every day?
Yeah, you can find me at the End Game Investor. If you put it into any search engine, you'll find the first link at the Seeking Alpha link. Um, and I write, 4 or 5 times a week. I'm not writing tomorrow because I'm going to Jerusalem and it's going to take me all day. We're in the middle of a holiday here, but I have a weekend report. And if you want to sign up for a Patreon, I have a Patreon, the Endgame Investor Patreon, where I take a more biblical look at all this stuff, using like ancient stories and sort of comparing what's going on now to the Tower of Babel, that sort of stuff. So if you're interested in that, check it out. And I focus on, the COMEX a lot and monetary philosophy, sort of, so you understand what is going on a more conceptual level, so you don't freak out at every little wiggle and every dip.
Well, I sure appreciate everything that you've been sharing, and we'll have the link in the description field below. Certainly has been great to have you on the channel every Friday. I know people really enjoy seeing it, and your knowledge, I've been quite blown away and been learning a lot having you on there each week. So we'll let you get rolling there. I know you have an early trip coming up tomorrow, but great to catch up with you again. It's probably been too long, but really appreciate everything you're doing, and good to see you again, my friend.
You too, Chris. Good to be back and hope to be back on soon.
Well, thank you, Rafi. Great to have you back on the show and get a chance to talk with him and ask some questions about a lot of the great things he's been reporting each week on Friday. Really has been a lot of fun to have him take over that Friday slot, which I know a lot of people have been enjoying. So, again, nice to see my old friend again, and hopefully enjoyed that. Before we wrap up, would like to thank Fortuna Silver, who has been the sponsor for Rafi's report, brings you that episode each Friday. Fortuna, who has been exploring at their Seguela Gold project, where they are getting closer to building their mill and expecting first gold pour in mid 2023. Some recent highlights from back in September at Sunbird: 13.6 grams per ton over 6.3 meters. 16.6 grams per ton over 2.8 meters, also continuing their drilling program, which has a couple of locations that are all going to be feeding a central mill, including Ancien. There they had 4.1 grams per ton over 11.9 meters. And also Kestrel, you see a 24 grams per ton over 2.8 meters, as well as G7 and Winnie. Again, as I mentioned, they are on track in terms of construction at the mill in Seguela. So looks like it's shaping up to be quite an asset for Fortuna going forward, and certainly appreciate their support of the show and bringing you this news every day. So thank you to Fortuna and to Rafi. With that said, we'll wrap up for today, and I will see you again tomorrow with Michael Oliver.